Hello again and welcome. Jim Dowson here, guest presenter with the daily Templar report. Not many folk bring you this stuff daily. And today we've got a very special guest on, Mr. Griffin. Are you there, Mr. Griffin?
I am, Mr. Dawson. Yes,
Good
indeed.
to see you. Right, we'll come back. I'll come back to you, Mr. Griffin, in a wee minute. In the meantime, if you haven't invited all your friends, you should do so. Get them all invited. Come in and see the show. But a good show today. Yes. Now, I'm going to start off with a wee bit of scripture, as you know. By the way, I'm not going to go through the list today because there's too many on. But God bless each and every one of these. The tick, oh, brothers. Absolutely, Iwan Egerstrom. Very good sentiment. But thank you for joining us. And let me personally thank each and every one of you in the chat there today. God bless you all, and you're very welcome. Well, I'm going to read a wee bit in Proverbs here. You should listen to this, Mr. Griffin. It's Proverbs chapter 23, and we're going to start at verse 29. Who hath woe? Who hath sorrow? Who hath contentions? Who hath babblings? Who hath wounds without cause? Who hath redness of eyes? They that tarry long at the wine, that they go to seek mixed wine. Look not upon the wine when it is red, when it giveth his colour in the cup, when it moveth itself aright. At the last it biteth like a serpent, and sting like an adder. Thine eyes shall behold strange women, and thy heart shall utter perverse things. Yea, thou shalt be of he that layeth down the midst of the sea, or as he lieth upon the top of a mast. They have stricken me, thou shalt say. I was not sick, they have beaten me, and I felt it not. When I awake, I will seek it yet again. Aye. Talking about the booze. John Barleycorn, Mr. Griffin, yes. So we know the Lord will add his blessing to this, the public reading of his infallible, inspired, inerrant word. But that's a dire warning about the dangers of drink. So take that to heed. I'm quite sure most of us have felt those emotions in our day. We shouldn't be proud of it. We should try and avoid it at all costs. But listen, it's not the end of the world. I know some American Christians go bananas about booze and alcohol. It's part of the human condition, you know. Stay off it if you can. If you're on it, be moderate. And occasionally if you get a bit stupid, well, repent it. That's it. Move on. Right, Mr. Griffin, what would you like to tell us about today, sir?
Well, Jim, first of all, the drink, absolutely, it can be a problem, can't it? But everyone should remember that Jesus turned the water into wine. So it's not the alcohol that's the problem, it's the surplus, the excess.
First miracle, the first miracle recorded, yeah.
Miracle, indeed, there you go. So, let's have a bit of drink, but not too much of it. So obviously I'd like to talk about fraud and lots of it. In the good old United States.
Oh, Mr. Griffin, sorry, can I interrupt you? I forgot. I promised everybody I was going to open this today.
Forget your head if
I know, I think I'm getting the old dementia. But listen, remember, I said drum roll. I think we maybe need a fanfare or a drum roll. Wait a minute and get this out. Do you remember the... what am I looking at here? Can people see me? Yeah. Oh, I'm going to open this because remember I did this a couple of weeks ago. I'm going to open this now. I know it's in it because I wrote it. But here we are. Here's what Dowson called the election. Now, I know I was in disagreement with a lot of folk. That's it. Thank you. Ba 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 ba. And a lot of folk were laughing at me for this, and a lot of folk were in agreement with me. But here we are. Here are the results. Don't know if we can see that. Can we see that, brother?
Yeah. Results. Yep. Biden approximately 300. Widespread fraud. Legal cases. Something else I can't read. Collapse. Something of the people. Signed Jim Dawson. It's not particularly legible, but I can read it. You better translate it.
I'll translate it. Results. Biden approximately 300, which means that leaves President Trump way behind. Approximately 300, because I knew we'd be around about that. Widespread fraud, legal cases, unrest and civil trouble. Collapse in confidence of the people re the democratic system in America. There you go. There it is. 2 weeks ago.
When did you write that? 2 weeks ago. Getting on 3 weeks.
A while ago now. Yeah, a while ago. Yeah. I just had that feeling, and sadly, and I don't, you know, everybody likes to be right. On this occasion, I'm pretty sick and gutted to be right, but it is what it is.
Well, it is what it is, Jim, but it ain't over yet, actually. It ain't over, the more I've looked at this, because the sheer scale of the fraud could yet upset all of this. Let me say straight away, I don't believe this business about secret watermarks. there's a lot of people getting very excited about the idea that a big section of the American police or whatever security establishment has lured the Dems into making going to mass fraud, which is all going to be exposed because there's secret watermarks. I don't believe a word of it, because to have done that, Donald Trump or people very close to him would have had to have a very rigid control over big sections of the election machine, and they'd have had to have had hundreds or thousands of people who could keep their mouths shut. No way. So I wouldn't go for that one. But there's vast amounts of electoral fraud. Yeah. And the point, there's always electoral fraud in elections. In terms of people registering to vote when they shouldn't be registered, the dead and all the rest of it. It always happens. And especially when you have postal ballots, mail-in votes posted out unsolicited, it's an absolute guarantee that there will be fraud. So to a degree, the mass media and the Democrats have made a rod for their own backs by saying there is no evidence of fraud. Because of course, they're going to find evidence of fraud. The question is, was there enough fraud to change the election result? And a secondary question, to what extent, how far up the democratic chain did approval of this fraud go? Those are the important questions. Now, the fly in this ointment isn't that they're not going to find fraud. The fly in this ointment is the Attorney General, William Barr. Now, he said, and again, lots of the naive are getting very excited over the fact that one of the Barr's key election officials has resigned, since Barr has said to him, we're going to investigate this. So they're all getting very excited indeed. But look at what Barr actually said. He said that he's authorized the Justice Department to investigate substantial allegations of voting irregularities. That's an exact quote. Now, the naive will get very excited over this. He's saying there's substantial allegations. No, he's not. He's said that he authorised him to investigate if there's substantial allegations. And that word substantial, it's a very clever use of the word because it's got this double meaning of a lot of, or ones that really make a difference. And I think that the danger here is that Barr has encouraged people to think there's going to be a genuine investigation and they're going to find substantial, i.e. lots of voting irregularities. And what will actually happen is he'll say at the end of it, we haven't found any substantial irregularities, i.e. irregularities which would make a difference to the election. Therefore, Biden has won and Trump is out. And Barr is the problem here because he's the Attorney General, a lot of clouts. He's apparently Trump's man. Jim, we can hear you chattering. Please don't. He's apparently Trump's man, but he's not. It's William Barr who refused to bring anyone to account over the Russiagate hoax, and Barr who's refused to push for anyone, let alone a huge section of the Democratic elite, to be pulled in over the Antifa Black Lives Matter violence. Barr is on the other side. And yet people are now thinking that Barr's going to decide that these allegations are genuine and the election is going to get overturned. It could be overturned because the allegations are genuine. The fraud is huge and substantial. But my prediction is that Barr will turn out yet again to stab President Trump in the back. I've got other things to talk about, Jim. Perhaps pass over to you for a minute. Have you got any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think it's very clever use of language. And me and you have dealt with slippery lawyers for a long, long time. And that's it. He's talking about he will, if there's evidence of substantial fraud, he will allow investigations. I mean, that's double speak. That's speaking out of both sides of your mouth at one time. A trick that few can manage. But it seems to be no problem with these politicians over there. No, I think it's nonsense. And I do think people get very carried away with all sorts of stuff. And it's silly. And I don't think he should... people should get their hopes up. Now, I'm noticed there if they've got the mod guy, Big Joe Torsilli from Glasgow is saying, can you put a link up for donation? He wants to make a donation and he can't get a link. So far be it from us ever to refuse that. But I think it's people can get easily disheartened by believing a lot of these conspiracy stuff and silly stuff. So we have to be very, very careful, folks, because I don't think this is going to turn out the way we think it's going to turn out. But I hope from this a new movement arises in America. That's what I hope, Nick. Do you think one will?
Yeah. I think if this goes completely the wrong way, as is more likely than not, then absolutely it's going to bring a whole new stage of radicalization to Middle America. And that Middle America, they're the people who make America work. They're the people who pay the taxes for the parasites at the top and the parasites at the bottom. So if Middle America doesn't play ball, then Biden cannot have a normal presidency, and nor should he. But we're not quite there yet, because this still could go right. I think a very important factor, one is Barr, that's the one traitor. What happens there? And the other traitor, very close, much closer to Donald Trump, is the son-in-law Kushner. Now, Kushner is the man you were saying the other week, Jim, about what on earth is going on with Donald Trump's online campaign, when on the website and so on, there's no sign of the Stars and Stripes, no tugging at the heartstrings of really American patriotism. And it was Kushner who was running that campaign.
Oh, was it?
So it's Kushner who was sabotaging that campaign, and it was Kushner who was advising Donald Trump, look, white working class men are in the bag, you've got their vote, so you go out and try and get the Latino vote and the black vote and so on, because you can take the white working class men for granted. And the result of that catastrophic error, stroke bad advice, was that the only demographic where President Trump lost support was amongst white working class men, who felt that he hadn't delivered enough on the wall. He hadn't done enough to bring jobs back to America. He hadn't kept America. He hadn't brought all the boys back from the foreign wars. And their vision of the Trump campaign, with all the stars and stripes and all the rest of it, it simply didn't happen because Kushner sabotaged it. Now, there is talk over the last literally couple of days that Kushner is telling Trump to go. Trump's saying no, and as a result of that, they split. Now, if that's true, then I think there is a genuine hope that President Trump may now do the right things, because he hasn't got that weasel sitting on his shoulder pouring poison into his ear. And in particular, I say one of the right things. There's one other great danger in all of this. Jim's looking surprised. We'll find out what he's looking at in a minute, I'm sure. One other great danger in all of this, and that's if Donald Trump, instead of going to war against the Democrats and electoral fraud, decides, well, I know what, we'll have a foreign adventure. It's what politicians quite often do. They've got problems at home. So let's go to war on Iran, which will be a catastrophe in all sorts of ways. It would be a terrible injustice given the scale of Iran's efforts against the Sunni Islamist monsters who destroyed Iraq, destroyed Syria, and at least perhaps with help from other people, destroyed the Twin Towers. But there is a danger of that. And especially if Kushner is there, still pouring poison into Trump's ears, I fear that the last couple of months of Donald Trump's presidency will actually be a war in Iran. If he's split with Kushner, that makes it far less likely, and it makes it far more likely that we might yet see an effective war by Donald Trump on the steel, which is the really important thing. I've got a couple more points to make on what that effective war would look like, but I think, Jim, you want to do a commercial break stroke bit of news on the cutouts.
I was looking surprised because I've seen a few of them wee pencil neck dweebs in who have a fake unregistered online party saying you need to come over to us. Not one of them has got the guts to use their name. Not one of them has ever come near the Templars, because most men in the Templars shave, and they're pouring in the day saying that the usual nonsense. But anyway, go away, children. Go and play in your own place. This is for grown-ups, please. Thank you very much. No, I just want to show you some things. I just want to show you some things from the chapter house, some progress in the chapter house, if you don't mind, because no, we haven't looked at that for a wee while. We ran out of blocks today, so the builder had to go away. But let me just show you where we are, okay? There we go. That's the outside here. That's it coming on. There's a big bit. We've got the doors in, the windows in the front end. It's beginning to look really good. We're just in the process now of putting the insulation into the cavity thing. I think we've got a view from round the back. Is that round the back? That's the second part of the chapter house, the back end. It's a big operation, look at it. It's a big place. So we're putting the insulation in and getting ready to put the other Gothic doors in and so on and so forth. But it's a big building now. It's about, well, I say big, it's relative, isn't it? It's about 35 feet by 25 feet or something like that, you know. So, yeah, it's coming on, but we're getting there, and we're really beginning to crack on with it. But remember, we need your support. You know, if you don't support the project, it can't happen. So everything's down to you. It's your chapter house. It's not mine. It's your chapter house. So please do what you can. Now, we'll put a chapter house donation link up in a wee minute. But I also want to show you this. We've got a chance of getting a hold of this church furniture. Now, I'll show you that in a wee second. It's beautiful. Look at this. These are solid oak chairs, over 100 years old. Look at the carvings in these. Okay? Now, I just want to give you a wee bit of history of these. And you know we cater for everybody. Look at the altar. That's the altar. This doing remembrance of me. Okay? Now, these are very Protestant looking, I've got to say that, and that's why I'm ever so pleased. I didn't plot it this way. God planned it this way. But let me just tell you a wee bit, if you don't mind, Mr. Griffin. You'll find this interesting as well. These are amazing. These come from the very first church built in Scotland after the Reformation in 1570 or 1580. The very first church in Scotland to be built was down in Port Glasgow, which is in the Clyde Estuary, where St. Patrick himself came from 1,000 years earlier. Can you believe this? And the history of our wee chapter house with St. Patrick's Church being built on the site of the monastery where we've took the stones to build our chapel. Everything is just linking into place. Now here's the other connection with Northern Ireland. The company who then, because this church closed down, now this is not the original stuff obviously, this was stuff made 100 years ago. But the church was closed down in the 1840s and it was reopened again in the 1860s or 70s with financial help from the famous Harland and Wolff shipyards who built the Titanic in Belfast. Yes. So they actually resurrected this church. And we are taking the altar, the holy altar made of solid oak, and the elders and the priests and the ministers' chairs that were partly paid for by Harland and Wolff, who built the Titanic, and round about the same time frame. The history going into this place. So we've got the Abbey, we've got St. Patrick's connection, we've got Harland and Wolff, we've got the first church built after the Reformation. Now on top of that very Protestant altar is going to be a very big Roman Catholic American cross from upstate New York. Remember the one that you paid for? It's going to be on top of it. And then we've got two candlesticks that come from the Orthodox tradition, either side of the cross. So we are trying to keep everybody pleased and everybody inclusive. So we'll have a very Scottish altar with the elders' chairs, and we'll have a very Roman Catholic monastery cross flanked by two Orthodox candles. Now tomorrow, folks, because we've got the chance of getting this, I'll tell you the price. The price is £1,400 for that whole set. The whole set. That's about, what many dollars is that, brother? About $1,600? Yeah, around about that. I don't know, but $1,600, $1,500, whatever. If it's, we're going to set a target of $1,500. Let's just call it $1,500. So tomorrow, ladies, bring your purses. Gentlemen, bring your wallets, for tomorrow I'll be on here and I will notice if anybody's hiding and nobody turns up. I'm going to be doing a drive tomorrow to see. We've bought the cross. You remember that? You bought the cross in an hour. I want to see if we can buy this full church set. We've got a chance to. The guy's holding it for us. There's no big deal. He's going to hold it, but not forever. So I've told him, listen, I'm going to go to my people next week, that's tomorrow, and we're going to try and raise that and get that. The history is no coincidence. It is unbelievable, and it's God-driven. So that's my opinion. You tell me what you think. Right, Mr. Griffin, let's get back to you again.
Yes, get back to work. Just one thing on that. I think the pictures of the chapter house are fantastic, Jim. Just one thing, people perhaps might not realise that the block work there is going to be rendered.
Oh, yes.
Is it not? So the stone arches and so on, and the windows and the doors, that's going to leap out at you from a rendered, presumably white or cream painted. It's going to look absolutely
and the roof is slated, Mr. Griffin, with real slates. The roof is going to be slated with copper nails as well.
Lovely. And this is going to be something. Something's going to be used by brethren coming to stay and so on, and their relatives and so on, and the other half of it an office for all sorts of causes and things. It's really serious, fantastic. It really is, because the facilities which have been worked in for the last couple of years are less than ideal, to be honest. Yeah. Miracles produced in less than ideal conditions. So, moving on. This here war in the USA, the war on the steel. This war could be won. What's happened here? We've gone frozen. What's happened? Hello?
Frozen. I can hear you.
We're unfrozen, right? This war could be won, and the first stage is tomorrow, Veterans Day, when there's a truckers' strike called against Biden and for Trump. Now, I don't know to what extent it's been called in terms of the truckers saying we've got to stop the steal, or whether they're protesting about what Biden would do to them. Because Biden's green policies in terms of tax hikes on fuel and such like, and also closing down the fracking industry in the USA, would cost an estimated 19 million American jobs. Not the jobs of the parasites, the lawyers and all the rest of them. It won't affect the people at the bottom, the ones on welfare and so on. These are blue collar jobs, the jobs of the people who really make America and keep it ticking. 19 million jobs is what the current estimate is that Biden-Harris policies would cost. And there's a lot of pressure, obviously, with the legal challenges to the voting frauds. This, if it goes anywhere, will go all the way to the Supreme Court. And mark my words, the Supreme Court will be under an awful lot of pressure that if they make judgments for Trump, they know and everyone knows that the BLM and Antifa will tear many American cities apart. And that's a great deal of moral and psychological pressure on the judges and so on to make a decision in favour of Biden and Harris. And there needs to be a counter to that. And the counter can be produced by the truckers, and one addition I'll talk about in a moment, that they are the men, overwhelmingly men, who could make America ungovernable far, far more than Black Lives Matter and Antifa would. Because if, as well as a strike, to have an effective strike, you've got to have 60, 70% of people joining in, which they may get, but it's a big deal. But if they move beyond just a strike, and if they were to start blockading the oil refineries and the supermarket distribution depots, and I gather it's being talked about already, then in a society where everything is delivered just in time, that's the mantra of modern corporate capitalism and so on, and supply chains, everything's delivered just in time. So a slight hiccup in distribution, whether it's because there's not enough fuel, whether it's because the truckers are on strike, or whether it's because there's people blockading the depots, a slight hiccup brings everything to its knees. And if you think that Antifa and Black Lives Matter can make serious trouble in the ghettos of urban America, then you wait and see what 48 hours without milk and bread and so on does. Literally, they can say, we uphold the law, but we're upholding the law and the American Constitution, and if our elites and if our court system won't uphold the law and defend our freedoms and our genuine democracy, then we'll do it through direct action. And that could happen. And I'll say there's one other group who need to weigh in on this as well, because the truckers alone aren't enough, potentially, but the farmers. The farmers are also going to be crucified by a Harris-Biden administration, because at the very core of all their climate business is the idea of climate justice, the idea of equality, and a war on meat. Quite literally, a war on meat. They want us all to become vegetarians, eating plant protein and insect protein, because that way all these cow farts won't destroy the Amazon rainforest or whatever this nonsense is. Or of course what it really is that way their big corporate backers, the people who own the patents on these foods, mock meat operations and so on, spinning meat out of soya and this sort of stuff, they would make a fortune. So that's what's going on there. So there will be a war on beef farmers, especially on dairy farmers, with the vegetarian crackpots who carry a huge amount of weight in a movement as radical as the Harris-Biden Democrats now are. They'll go to war on American farmers. They'll destroy the livelihoods and the lives of thousands of American farmers unless the American farmers get them first. And if Trump pulls this together, President Trump pulls this together and says, yes, the truckers and the farmers come out and together we're going to see the right thing done by the American system, then they could stop all of this without a shadow of a doubt. And this isn't some kind of theory. Jim, you'll remember, our American watchers won't know that in the year 2000, a few hundred hauliers and farmers virtually bought the government of Tony Blair to its knees.
I was there.
In Britain.
I was there on the picket lines.
Yep. When it wasn't thousands, it wasn't all the hauliers in Britain, all the truck drivers. It was a few hundred of them, and a few hundred farmers went and they blockaded the oil refineries, and they set up picket lines, and the majority of the other hauliers, the other truckers, wouldn't cross those picket lines, so turned around, and it brought the country to a standstill, and the country was on the side of the people causing this immense pain and trouble. And in the end, two things happened. One, the government gave significant concessions to the lorry drivers, and two, the fake news media lied them back to go back to work by telling them that the blockade at one refinery is off, when in fact it wasn't. But so there was lots of very clever manoeuvrings to, in the end, break the strike. But that was partly because the strikers didn't have one leader, and they didn't have a really clear objective. And they got promises that the government would do something about the taxes and so on fuel, so they gave up. But if President Trump were to be the leader and say you only give up if I tell you to give up, then that could make all the difference. So to close this off from me, Jim, I would say that my message to Donald Trump, and I hope one way or another it gets there, is get off that golf course, lead your people, go to war not on Iran, but go to war against the biggest steal in electoral history. Stop this and save the United States of America, because it can be done. I'm not saying it will be done. I don't even think it will be done. I'm saying if there's the will and the leadership, then it can be done.
Do as vote.
We'll see.
Do as vote. Do as vote. I agree with you 100%. And you know what people don't understand now. Just to recap a couple of things there. You know, when I was actually doing civilian work for a living, my profession was marketing at a very high level. And I said on this show, and you remember several months ago when I seen the beginning of the President Trump's running an election campaign, I said, whoever done this website is absolutely useless. It's the worst I've ever seen. I told the techie guy, have a look at this. He said, what's this? There wasn't one single stars and stripes on the page, not one. Biden was festooned on it, and I thought, this is a bad egg. Whoever's done this is doing this deliberately. Nobody's that stupid. And I didn't like the look of it. I didn't like the usability of it. The techie guy looked at it. It was garbage, rubbish, and we could have certainly gave President Trump a far better presence online. No problem at all. So that annoyed me. The other thing people don't realise is shops nowadays work on an 8-day site, an 8-hour cycle. They only keep. If you look at your big supermarkets, there's trucks coming in and out 24/7 because basically the stocks are shit. The shelves are stocked every 8 hours. 8 hours the shop is empty. So if the truckers throw their weight about, and I know the Teamsters are behind President Trump, if they throw their weight behind President Trump or even put down tools for a week, chaos will reign. So Black Lives Matter think they have power. If the farmers come out, the truckers come out in America, some of the other transport workers, unions and all that come out, good night Vienna, it's all over. We're going back to the drawing board again. So we must pray that that we can try and influence the things by praying and contacting good people, solid people, and starting to put this into people's minds and into people's thought process. The power of the people is still there. And remember, when the people are united, they cannot be defeated. And with God on your side, the game's in the bag. It's in the bag. It can be done. Will it be done? I don't know. Like you, Mr. Griffin, I don't know. But I pray to God that it is done. Because America, I never thought I'd see the day when an American election had turned into something more akin to some South American junta or some African republic with the leader with more medals on him than he can actually stand up with. That's what America's become. A third world junta with usurpers coming up all over the place. But I must also say, and I might offend some Americans here, this is what happens, my American friends, when you appoint people like, who's this guy in South America where Americans have made president, the guy never even won the election? Do you know what I'm talking about? Venezuela, is it? Oh, is he gone?
Well, they're trying to,
yeah,
yes.
But they say Guido, they recognise Guido, a man who was not elected as a president. Yeah. He's not been elected.
Yeah, this isn't new. Smedley Butler, one of the great American military heroes of all time, he, in his later stages of his career, wrote that when he was a very brave Marine, fighting the banana wars down in Central and South America. He was doing the business of American big business, even in those days. And he said quite openly that we rigged elections.
Yeah.
CIA and we rigged elections all over South America. And what you do in one place comes back to haunt you. Just as if Donald Trump does these things, and if there is a sign that Biden and Harris aren't going to get their way, then the Antifa Black Lives Matter mob will turn out, as we said only a few days ago, and create outside the White House and various other places Maidan type, like they did in Kiev, and the operations to make America ungovernable by this far left mob will be very slick, because they're operating to a playlist which the American deep state has tried and tested in Serbia, in Belgrade. They tried it even in Russia. They've tried it in dozens of countries. In
Bulgaria,
and in Bulgaria, and they pulled it off particularly in Ukraine with Victoria Nuland. So with senior Democrats under the Obama regime, they perfected the techniques of a coloured revolution, and they will have, if Trump does make a real effective stand, they will have, I'll tell you the colour because it's already picked, because there's lots of pictures of Hillary Clinton and others wandering around at tense moments in purple. Yep. They will have a purple revolution against Trump unless the American people have a red, white and blue revolution against them.
Well, look, Mr. Griffin, me and you are regular visitors to Eastern Europe. Now, the American friends here, I'm not talking about American people, I'm talking about the American deep state and the establishment. You've got to understand that America is widely despised by good, solid Christian people all through Eastern Europe. And I'll tell you why.
Too. And Britain
Britain's hated, especially the English. Yeah. But I'm also Scots, so I'm all right. Griffin's in trouble. But you look at Montenegro, you look at Kosovo, you look at Bosnia, you look at Bulgaria, you look at Macedonia, you look at all of these countries, and Ukraine. America has rigged the elections in every single one of these countries openly. Not even hiding it, openly. And then you go to South America, it's the same story. So somebody's now rigged the American election, and you don't like it. I don't like it. The free world doesn't like it. But once you start down this road, now we know all about this because we used to have an empire. We used to have the British Empire, and we did the same thing. And it came back to bite us in the butt. It's not a good idea. When you behave dishonestly and dishonourably, it always comes back to get you. God will not be mocked. Some people call it karma. I call it righteous indignation from God on high. So let's hope God has mercy on the decent, normal people of America and doesn't hold them responsible for the crimes of the godless elites. Because it wouldn't be fair in my human opinion. But God is the ultimate arbiter. So maybe we're all being taught a lesson, folks. Because why didn't we open our mouths when Maduro was fated as the rightful leader of that country in South America when he hadn't won the election? Why did us as people, civilians and citizens of our great nations, why did we keep quiet when bombs were dropping on Belgrade, a Christian heartland in the middle of Europe that have done so much for Christendom? Why did we keep quiet when we started a civil war in Ukraine? Why did we keep quiet? Well, now it's happened to us, and I say us, a collective us, the good Christian people of the West, and especially in America. It's happened to us now. That's what happens in life. What goes around comes around, and nothing truer. And I just hope that the American people can just still pull it back. And you know how you can do that? By praying, by asking God to forgive us all for our silence and our omission, and He would have mercy upon us and deliver our nation once again unto righteousness, truthfulness, and again, glory, and make America great again through righteousness, not through power. That's my honest prayer. God bless each and every one of you. Mr. Griffin, we have to go for today, sir. But tomorrow we're going to be on now. Please remember, everybody, it is a very important today. Tomorrow, it's the 11th. It's here. It's a big Remembrance Day. It's Veterans Day in America. It's a very, very solemn day. We're going to have a wee certain couple of things to do in it, and to honour all the people who have died and served to make us free, which we're just about to lose. And obviously we'll bring in again, no better thing, the altar for the chapel, and we'll see if we can get that dealt with as well. So it's going to be a big day tomorrow, and no better day to do it. So God bless each one of you. But remember, tomorrow it's a special day. If you can, get your tie on, or put your uniform on, put your medals on, do what you need to do. But tomorrow will be a big an emotional day for a lot of people. So that's all from me. Mr. Griffin, thank you ever so kindly for coming on. We'll get you on again either later, end of the week, or begin the next week, if that's okay. Thank you very much. That's it from me, folks. God bless each and every one of you. And as I always say, I hope to be with you tomorrow if the good Lord preserves me. But until then, stick close to God. You won't go far wrong. Dus Vault!